Hello, everyone. Today I want to talk about George Harrison's 2009 compilation album that was called Let It Roll. This is a response video, in a way, to a video that was put out by Hands Across the Water. And the three hosts over there did a little exercise where they took the standing Let It Roll album as we know it and decided to try to improve it and put their own flourishes on it and what they would do to improve it. Largely using their own feelings as to what songs they like the best and they think really would fit favorites in a way by them. Now, first let me talk a little bit about Let It Roll, released in 2009. A lot of fans, myself included, have felt that Let It Roll missed the mark. You know, George Harrison compilation albums have never been really perfect. They've never been really doing George justice. You know, beginning in 1976 with the Best of George Harrison, which a lot of people complained because one side was all Beatles tracks and the other side was George Harrison solo tracks. You know, purists felt that George should have the entire album with his solo music. Now, I made a video review, and I hope you'll check it out, not too far from here in the past, a few videos back, where I did an actual review of the 1976 Best of George Harrison, and I argued that in that case, songs like Here Comes the Sun, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and Something were indeed among the, quote, best of George Harrison. I mean, who wouldn't say that those three songs were among his best? But that's the other video, so you can check out the other video and how I do both kind of a review, a criticism, but also a compromise. Then in 1989, the album came out, Best of Dark Horse, which I liked. It was a good compilation, but again, it just was the Dark Horse years, the later years for George. It didn't really cover his entire career. It wasn't a career-spanning collection. And there were three new songs on that album which I really liked. One of them being "Poor Little Girl," good song. "Cockamamie Business," which was really a good song, and also a great song, "Cheer Down," which was from the movie Lethal Weapon 2. And still, out of those two compilations, it wasn't really definitive for George. Then in 2009, we got this album, Let It Roll, which, by the way, I should mention, is supposed to be getting re-released on vinyl for the first time, though, because prior to this, it was only available on compact disc in 2009. Supposed to be coming out July, next month. And that'll be vinyl. It's vinyl debut. I've decided I may very well get it because, believe it or not, in 2009, I chose not to get Let It Roll. I don't have it on CD, or, you know, I'm thinking in later years I might have found a copy and snatched it up just to have it complete in the collection. But I remember distinctly in 2009 I had no interest and I didn't buy it. Anyway, for all I'm saying about Let It Roll, it still wound up being number 4 in the UK, and it made number 24 in the US on the chart. So it did well enough for something of that type that late in 8 years after George passed away. All right, well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to read all the tracks, go through the whole list of what's on the album Let It Roll. And inexplicably, when they made this career-defining, career-spanning compilation, they left off some albums. There was nothing on Let It Roll from George's Extra Texture album, nothing from Dark Horse, nothing from 33 1/3, nothing from Gone Troppo. So I don't understand that at all. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put songs here that are not necessarily my favorites, my personal favorites, because I believe this is two different things we're doing. If you're going to, make a video on this or a commentary, and you just basically put songs that you love and you would have liked to see on there, then it becomes more like we can do a video, just a general video. This is not a video of Joe Mayo's favorite 19 George Harrison tracks. That's a whole other video. What I'm trying to do is imagine that if this was in my hands and I was putting this album out as a career-spanning Harrison comp, what songs would I feel belonged on here. And many of them, all of them, as a matter of fact, I like, as it turns out. But here's what I'm doing, okay? Also, I know I'm trying to explain this and I'm delaying it. It's already over 5 minutes, but I have to lay this groundwork out. The thing is, too, that when this came out, now my memory from the time tells me that the Harrisons, Olivia Harrison and Danny Harrison, they wanted this to be maybe a two CD set. And if memory serves, a couple of things. Number one, they didn't want it to be, the company didn't want it to be two CDs. They insisted on one CD only, which is what we got, and 19 tracks, and that they insisted on putting some Beatles songs on here, and we'll go through those as we go, okay? Okay, the album opens with Got My Mind Set on You. Absolutely essential for this collection. I'll tell you why. It was the last number one hit, not only by George, but by any of the Beatles. In 1988, it became number one. And to this day, everywhere I go, that's the one George Harrison song where I live anyway, that seems to be on the radio. You can catch it if you go to anywhere, a store, a supermarket. Gotta get you. I was going to say, gotta get you into my life. It's early in the morning. It's 6 a.m. here, folks. Got My Mind Set on You is indeed a big hit and has to be on here. And I like the fact that it opens the album because those heavy drums of the 80s, boom, 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 really start this album off in a rollicking, uh, opening, bombastic kind of way. In a way, it's really like, I think they call it a banger. This is a banger. Well, anyway, so I'd leave that on here. Got My Mind Set on You. Very essential track. Second is Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth, from George's Living in the Material World album. And by the way, I should have mentioned Got My Mind Set on You is from the Cloud 9 album. So there's two albums represented. Give Me Love, Give Me Peace on Earth, one of George's best ever solo songs, fully deserves to be on here. Number 3 is where I'd make the first change. Ballad of Sir Frankie Crisp, aka Let It Roll, which kind of is the title of the album. I would take that off. And instead I would put on there Wake Up My Love, the 1982 single from George's album Gone Troppo. And that will be the only representation on here from my list, for me, of that album from Gone Troppo. Or at least it gets represented here, right? By the way, I wouldn't call this necessarily call this compilation Let It Roll anymore because I took off Ballad of Sir Frankie Crisp. However, it still could work if you want the title. Okay, next we have number 4, My Sweet Lord, a no-brainer. George's arguably biggest solo song. It was the number one song for George back in 1971. I think it was early 71 it became number one. It was the first solo Beatles number one track by George, and it's a classic. How could you not have that on here? The next track is another elimination. Now we get While My Guitar Gently Weeps, the live version. First of all, I'm not a fan of live songs on compilation albums. The exception being if the live track is like really a big hit or something that really defined the person. Some examples are like with McCartney and Wings. He had Maybe I'm Amazed. That's a big career-defining track in a way. It was a big hit. It's liked and well known. In that case, I would leave Maybe I'm Amazed live on a Paul compilation. But that's not the case with any of the live tracks I'm going to discuss here from George. And there's some other examples too, like maybe you have like Show Me the Way by Peter Frampton. If you're doing a Peter Frampton compilation, Show Me the Way would be on there. Cheap Trick, I Want You to Want Me live. You get the picture. Like, that's my feeling, just my angle. All right, so I'll take off While My Guitar Gently Weeps live. And no Beatles on here on this particular comp. And in this case, I'll put on the song You, the opening track from George's 1975 Extra Texture album. So now in my version, you also have extra texture represented here. Okay, next we have George's All Things Must Pass. And not a hit song. It wasn't a hit single or anything, but it's a great track that defines George very much from the great All Things Must Pass album. So I'll keep that track on there. Next, we have a track from the Brainwashed album here, Any Road. Wow, Any Road is just absolutely fabulous. It's one of my all-time favorite George Harrison songs personally, and it belongs on here. It was a single that was released after George passed. Um, Any Road stays. Then we go back to the Cloud 9 album for another time for the song This Is Love. Uh, it wasn't a big hit single or anything, but I really love it. It's a beautiful track, and This Is Love remains on the album for me. Then we have George's 1981 album, although from somewhere in England, All Those Years Ago. All Those Years Ago, tribute to John Lennon after John was taken from us. It was a hit, almost became number one, but All Those Years Ago stays on this album. Now, next we have a song which I took off the album, and with some reservation, I'll tell you why. Uh, the track on the album was Marwa Blues. It's an instrumental, lovely instrumental. In fact, the song won a Grammy. Okay, so that's the reason I'm saying it's a Grammy winner. Would I really want to take that off? I had to. Instrumental that I love, but I took it off and put on the self-titled track Dark Horse from the Dark Horse album from 1974. And there we have the Dark Horse album represented. There's a lot of other songs I like off there, but if I was only going to pick one for this comp, I'd pick Dark Horse. Then we go back to All Things Must Pass for What Is Life, great track, which absolutely is popular in George's canon and belongs on the album. Then we return to the Brainwashed album for a really nice song called Rising Sun. And I will keep Rising Sun on this compilation. Let's return to Cloud 9 for the next track, When We Was Fab. George's commentary on the Beatles days from Cloud 9, and great song, and it stays. Next we have another live track, Beatles again, Something Live, which is, these songs are from the concert for Bangladesh, I believe. I'm going to take off Something Live, and instead I'm going to put on this song. This song is from George's 1976 album 33 and a Third, and how that album is ignored I don't know, because in my estimation anyway, I think most fans, they think that 33 and a Third is one of George's finest albums. So this song takes over from Something Live. Then we have a track from the self-titled George Harrison album, only one track that makes the album, Blow Away. I love George Harrison's 1979 self-titled album, and the song Blow Away was robbed. I believe it's such a good pop song, it should have deserved a better fate and been a better, higher single on the charts. Then we have, next track, Cheer Down. Cheer Down, fantastic George on slide guitar, one of my all-time favorite George Harrison tracks. I really love that song, and I love that it's included on here. Only 3 tracks left to go. Now we have another live track, Beatles again. Here Comes the Sun live, which has no business being on this compilation in my estimation. And I'm going to go back to the Extra Texture album for my favorite track on this album, This Guitar Can't Keep From Crying. How the hell that's left off, I don't know. But this guitar replaces Here Comes the Sun. Now on Let It Roll, they had a song called I Don't Want to Do It, which is interesting because it's a rare track. It's the only way you could get that song, really. It was convenient having it on here for completists. It was from the movie Porky's Revenge. And don't go seeing the movie Porky's Revenge thinking you're going to hear the song, because in the movie, it's only played on a car radio in the background. In the distance, you can barely even hear it in the film. But I Don't Want to Do It is a decent song, I think, but I took it off in favor of the much more crucial Cracker Box Palace from 33 and a Third. So we've got 2 songs from 33 and a Third in my estimation, and 2 songs from Extra Texture. Finally, Let It Roll closes with a very fitting track, Isn't It a Pity, going back to his classic album from 1970, All Things Must Pass. Isn't It a Pity? Perfect on this album. I'll leave it alone as the last track. Well, there it is, folks. I'd like to know what you think of my choices. What do you think of my rationale? I mean, I think this is obviously a better career-spanning album than was originally released and presented to us in 2009. I'd like to know what you think of mine and what you would do for your choices. Thank you all, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I'd like to see you there.